Today, I'm going to simulate what it would be like to raise a hungry worm as a pet. And I don't mean some normal earthworm in a jar of dirt. I ordered this thing off the dark web from a seller who would not even tell me what species it was. Just a price, a shipping address, and one single warning in the listing: it grows. Right now, that order is sitting on my kitchen table in a black plastic crate with no labels on it. I do not know what is inside. I just paid for it, so we are going to open it together. And by the end of this video, I'm going to find out exactly how bad of an idea this was. The crate is heavier than it should be for its size. There are small air holes punched in the lid and a faint, low scratching sound coming from inside, like something soft is dragging itself across plastic. I cut the seals, I lift the lid, and there he is. Curled at the bottom in a little nest of damp dirt is baby hungry worm. He is maybe the length of my finger. Soft, smooth, sand-colored, with these tiny white eyes sitting weirdly high on his head, and a mouth that takes up almost the entire front of his body. He looks both terrifying and kind of adorable at the same time. I reach in and pick him up. He weighs almost nothing. He coils once around my finger, lifts his head toward the camera, and opens that mouth into a huge round tunnel that is bigger than the rest of him. Not biting, not panicking, just holding it open, waiting. But I do not trust that mouth. So if I'm actually going to raise him, I need to figure out 3 things fast. What kind of tank does this thing need? What does it eat when it is small? And how fast does it grow before keeping it stops feeling like owning a pet and starts feeling like containing a problem? The note inside the crate says one word: soil. So I build him a dry tank. A glass aquarium, no water at all, just a deep layer of dark, wet earth, a few rocks, a little log to hide under, and a heat lamp on one side. I lower him onto the dirt, and within about 5 seconds, he is gone. The only sign he was ever there is a tiny ridge of disturbed soil where he went under. For his first feeding, I start small. Mealworm, little chunks of raw meat. The second the food hits the surface, the ground opens, the food disappears, the surface settles like nothing happened. No chewing, no struggle, just intake. For water, I use a pipette. A few drops on the dirt above his head, and you can actually see his mouth come up to meet the droplet before it even soaks in. He drinks straight from the tip of the pipette like a baby bird. That is the part that really stayed with me. The math of the mouth versus the math of the body just does not add up. A few weeks later, the tank was wrong. The dirt was lower, the log was crushed flat, and when I tapped the glass, the whole substrate shifted from one side to the other because he was now the size of a small dog underneath it. I had to build him a bigger tank. Half the garage, walled off in plywood and reinforced glass, 2 feet of soil minimum. The mealworms turned into whole rabbits. The pipette turned into a full water bowl he would shove his entire face into and drain in seconds. For the first time, I actually picked him up. I dug him out slowly, hands under his middle. He was heavy now, dense, ribbed, warm. I held him up to the camera, and his mouth opened right next to my face, then closed, then opened again. Calm. A little too calm. So if you still think this thing is kind of cute somehow, subscribe now, because this is the last time in the whole story where that opinion is even remotely defensible. I set him down for 1 second to grab the camera. 1 second. When I turned back, half of my kitchen chair was gone. Not broken, not chewed, just gone. He had eaten through the wood and the cushion like it was bread and was already crawling back toward his enclosure like nothing had happened. A month later, we had a serious problem. He was the size of a car. He had cracked the reinforced glass overnight, and the whole garage smelled like wet soil and something I do not want to describe. He was way too big for the tank, way too strong for the walls, and way too hungry for rabbits to keep working. So I went out into the yard with a small excavator and I dug a massive pit, deeper than my house is tall. Then I poured the entire thing in concrete. Walls, floor, every single side. Because the one thing I knew about this animal by now was that if there was dirt underneath him, he was going to disappear into it. I lined the top of the concrete with a thick layer of soil, dropped him in, and watched. He sank. He hit concrete. He stopped. He could still burrow, but only inside the layer I gave him. The food scale jumped too. Rabbits turned into whole pigs, dropped in from above with a crane, because I was not standing at the edge of the pit with chunks of meat anymore. Every time a carcass hit the soil, the surface would go completely still. Then one specific spot would open, like the ground itself had a mouth, and the pig was gone. No chase, no wasted movement, just intake. By month 3, he was the size of a freight truck. I am talking actual cargo truck length, segments as thick as my body, head bigger than the front of my car. He could not even fit fully under the soil anymore. He He just rested his head on the rim of the pit, mouth slightly open, watching me. That was the moment I stopped thinking of him as a pet and started thinking of him as a tenant. I had to let him go. We strapped him to a long flatbed at night, used way more machinery than should ever be required to move a single worm, and drove him out to an open field with soft, deep soil all the way to the horizon. The second we cut the straps, he did not crawl. He sank. The ground opened, swallowed him whole, closed again, and the only sign he had ever been there was a faint, low pulse coming up through my boot. Then nothing. The field was just a field again. He was gone. I stood there for a few minutes, waiting for some kind of sign, some movement in the soil, anything. There was nothing. I drove home that night, convinced I had handled it. 6 months later, the news was on every channel. Something massive was moving under the city. Streets were collapsing in perfectly straight line. Whole buildings were tilting at the corners as the dirt under them was pulled out from below. The army was firing into craters at something they could not even see. And then he broke the surface. He was taller than the buildings, segments as wide as city blocks. And that same calm, round mouth, the one I had fed mealworms into with a pair of tweezers, was now wide enough to swallow a bus without slowing down. He was tearing through the skyline like the city was just one more wooden chair. The worst part was that when I saw the footage, I recognized him instantly. Same eyes, same posture, same calm. He was not panicking out there. He was eating, and he was eating because I taught him how. I knew his food. I knew his routine. I knew the exact sedative I had been mixing into his water since he was the size of my finger. So I made one final batch, the amount it would take to put a baby-hungry worm to sleep, scaled up to the size of a small mountain. We loaded it into a tanker, rigged the tanker to a cargo plane, flew over the city, and dropped the entire payload straight down his open mouth from above. He swallowed it like it was nothing. And then, for the first time in his entire life, he stopped moving. Drone footage that night was unreal. A body the length of a city block, the height of a tower, lying perfectly still across the rubble, calm, a little too calm, but asleep. If you enjoyed this, subscribe because I definitely want to do more pet creature simulations like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.